Okay. Oops. Hello, hello, hello. All right, let's get Alexa to stop. Alexa, please stop. Gotta say please to Alexa. Y'all know I'm trying to figure her out still. Okay, NSG community, happy Sunday evening. It is 6 p.m. So y'all know IG Live with NSG. This week's topic is about identifying and removing toxicity. So with any one of the topics that I want to bring forth, I'm always going to do some research. Excuse me. Well, not so much research. I'm always going to do some homework and preparation for you guys. So this week, I didn't need to do a lot of work on this one. It kind of came to me in my own personal life, as I'm sure many of you may have experienced, and I guess that's why the topic was asked to be discussed. So kicking into it. When we talk about identifying toxicity, note that I didn't say identifying toxic people, because the truth of the matter is that I think when we put out, and this is going to sound harsh, it may sound harsh to some, I think that we get back what we put out. And that doesn't mean that you're toxic. It just means that there's something swarming around in your life that you're not aware of that are attracting this kind of energy to you. Things that are toxic are draining. They weigh down on us. They're heavy. There's a whole host of things that I'm sure you guys have experienced that I probably haven't even said in terms of how toxicity impacts us. And yet it doesn't take away from the fact that we should still look inward to see what is it that I'm putting out that's kind of bringing this kind of energy into my space. So that is why I didn't say toxic people. The flip side to that is, the other reason why I didn't say toxic people is because I don't believe that anyone in and of themselves are toxic. I think that there is a lot going on that can cause them to impact the people around them in a not so favorable way. And again, that's usually an inward reflection of what's happening. Oh, I look a little greasy on this live, y'all. Okay, so identifying toxicity. I mentioned already that this week I noticed it wasn't that hard for me to prep because situations had arose, and I realized there was this toxic energy that I had been receiving that I wasn't quite addressing. And it would come and go in waves, so I really didn't pay it much mind. However, it's toxic nonetheless. And the reason why I call it toxic is because it weighed me down heavy. It was exhausting on my mind. It started to hit me physically because I just didn't really have energy to do much of anything else after dealing with that particular situation. Excuse me. So the situation was dealing with the constant. So let me take it this way. So I'm a person that likes to support and give in situations. And at the time, I thought I was doing what was needed. I thought I was doing what was right. I was responding. I like to assess situations and respond to the needs so that way we don't keep repeating the same patterns. And in this situation, I had been speaking up on matters that I was seeing and talking about the impact. Oh, bottom lip kind of shining. Speaking about the impact that it would have on people around us constantly. And I started to notice that I would say the same things over and over again. And if you guys remember from last week when we were talking about boundaries, and I was talking about, having to repeat yourself and noticing that people are not respecting it, then it's time for you to enforce something. Well, while that was for boundaries, similar notion was applied in this situation with the toxic experience that I was dealing with. So it hit me on Wednesday was a rough day for me. Wednesday was the day it went down. I found myself repeating the same thing over and over and over to the same group of people. I realized that they weren't listening. And then it hit me. I finished a Zoom meetings, feeling depleted. I was just feeling like washed. I was frustrated, very frustrated. And I felt like something had to give, because I realized that when this particular topic comes up, I'm constantly feeling this way. I'm left feeling this way. And I had to tell myself, hey, listen, there is something that you are doing that's consistently bringing this in. So it's not that the people are just hell-bent on living in this existence that they're living in and that they're toxic. It's I am exposing myself to something that I don't need to. And that was hard to accept, because I wanted to point blame. I wanted to say these people were wrong. I wanted to say they were screwed up. In the most negative sense of the feeling, I guess. Hey, and then in my least favorable self, let me put it that way, I wanted to call these people all kind of names. I felt that it was just stupidity in action. I felt that it was a lot of stubbornness. I felt that it was ignorance to ignore particular topics. And then I realized something that I had recognized a while back but never put into action, which was this right here is not for me to take care of. This situation is not my own. No matter what brick walls I see us kind of running into or them running into, it's not my place to save them. And the reason why I feel like I'm constantly drained and I have a headache and I'm annoyed and frustrated and cursing them out every which way I can is because I am inviting that toxic energy into my space, because I'm refusing to do the thing that I know I need to do, which is step back and let people live their life in their own way and just handle me. Because the truth of the matter is, the situation does not directly impact me. Yes, I may have to be in the environment. However, there are a ton of things that I can do to sustain my own sanity, so that way the toxic environment does not have an impact on me and my space and my lane. Yes. So that was me becoming aware of the fact that I was aiding in the feelings that I was receiving. And that's how I kept myself in this toxic energy. I see Lauren saying makes me think of what other people think. And yes, the whole concept of, that's none of my business. Yes. So that is kind of the approach that I really had to take with this situation to remove the toxicity. So identifying it was me recognizing that I am constantly frustrated. I'm cursing people out. I'm not wanting to deal with things. I'm shutting down. And the removal of it wasn't that I removed them, because unfortunately I can't remove the people. However, I can remove the hold that the situation has on my life and my being and my sense of awareness. And their actions weren't about me. Yes, I see someone wrote that in the chat. Their actions weren't about me. It was whatever they're dealing with, and that's not for me to try to resolve. So that's a little intro to me and my prep around this toxic discussion and how it impacted me this week. So timely that we're talking about this on a Sunday evening. The thing that I really had intended on starting with was just kind of, and I'm looking down at my notes, just kind of pointing out how the idea of toxicity starts with our own internal perceptions. So if we're perceiving a person to be of toxic energy, then stop for a moment and try to explore how this person came to be in your awareness. What prompted you to feel this way? How do you know it feels toxic to you? What action. All right, I had to pause in the live because I thought I put on my do not disturb, but a phone came through, so my apologies. So continuing on is this internal perception of thinking about what energy am I putting out that's bringing in this situation for individuals to come into my life. How is it impacting? How are they impacting me? And then once you know the how they're impacting you, then you can look at, okay, well, what am I going to do to offset that? So that goes into the removal part. You have to do some digging though, in terms of what toxicity looks like in order to understand how to move it. And if your toxicity looks like a whole person, then there's still some more work to do because you want to go deeper. It's not just that your mother, your father, your sister, your man, or your girl is toxic. It's that there are behaviors that are associated with these individuals that they are acting out towards you that feels a particular way for you. So you have to figure out what their actions are, how it lands for you. Once you know how it lands for you, go and ask yourself that why question. Like of all the videos I've done so far, I talk about like asking the why question and why I think it's safe to ask why. Why is a baseline for understanding, and this is what helps to move us into our next phase, which is growth. The other thing that I wanted to touch on in terms of identifying toxicity is that toxicity shifts over time. So it shifts with your growth. If you are growing in a positive direction, then what used to be tolerable for you then becomes toxic. So there can be certain spaces where, let's use drinking. If you go from a place where all you did was hang out with your peoples and you were drinking and all this stuff, and then you realize, hey, that's not really my life anymore. I'm choosing no longer to drink. And then you go out and you hang out with that same group and they're turning up and they're drunk and whatever. That now becomes a toxic space for you because it's no longer the thing that interests you. It's not in your space anymore, and your energy is not something that you put in your energy anymore, or put in your space anymore rather. So be mindful of that. The more you grow, your view of toxicity will shift as well. In the same way, toxicity can also, we can become more open to things when we begin to fall backwards into old patterns, or when we start to regress. I was trying to find a strength-based word, but you know what? I'm gonna just keep it real and say it how it comes out. When we start to move backwards in life, when we start to accept things that we weren't accepting in the past, that then lowers our threshold for what we consider toxic. So certain people, like an abusive partner, can come in, verbally or physically abusive, right? An abusive partner can come in because those small things those things that we thought were small, like them making jokes, them having jokes on you, and you let that slide, continues on to straight insults when they're mad at you, and you let that slide because you felt like it was an argument, and next thing you know, they're downright disrespectful towards you in any space. That when you hit that part, then it's like something goes off and you're like, this is a toxic relationship. Well, there were things that led up to this that we could have caught had we been in a better sense of awareness, had we had a higher sense of self-esteem, had we taken inventory of what we will accept versus what we won't accept. So those are different ways to help you try to identify toxic individuals. I wanted to go into, after we laid the foundation for how to identify it, I wanted to go into what to do about it, right? Because, excuse me, we all can point out different people who we feel are toxic in our lives. We can point out different situations that we feel are toxic, and then it's like, boom, we're stuck. So we know who it is or what it is, and then we're stuck. So I'm going to share a couple of questions that I've come up with that can help us identify what this is and how to move through it. So I'm going to read them and explain them, all right? So I'm going to look down to read them, and then I'm going to talk back to you guys to explain. So the first question is, what does your toxicity look like? So this goes into what I was just sharing with you before about identifying how it's impacting you. What are you feeling? So going into the what does it look like, it's the behaviors, what's being done to you that doesn't feel right, that doesn't sit right, that leaves this like heavy cloak on you. Really visualize what that looks like, because if you're experiencing it, then you can, with stretching yourself, you can really get a picture of what it looks like. The second question is, how does this impact you? How does it show up in your life? So with this question, it's really asking you to go deeper. So if you say that it's someone constantly yelling at you, so the impact that it has is it may be lowering your self-esteem. Hey, it may be lowering your self-esteem. It may be causing you to feel like you don't want to be in particular spaces, or things that you used to enjoy, you no longer want to do anymore. You may not want to be around a particular person because every time you're around them, there's this heavy weighted feeling on you that you just can't stomach anymore. Those are the ways that it impacts you, in different ways that it shows up in your life. After you know those two things, and I highly encourage us to write these things down, because once we get a feel for the flow of how to identify this, then we can keep it going, right? So one of the things that I'm big on when I'm working with my coaching clients is giving you tips and tools to help sustain your growth and development past our work together. So the third question that I'm going to share with you in terms of identifying and removing toxicity is, what is it holding you back from? So when I was closing out the second question, I said, you don't want to go into particular spaces. So let's say it's hanging out with particular social groups, right? And you know that there is a person that constantly makes you feel bad that's there, and now you're shying away from this social group. It's holding you back from your fun. It's holding you back from your recreation. It could be holding you back from your own peace of mind, right? That's just an example of a social group. However, whatever your answer is, it's just what your answer is. So trust it. The fourth question is, what sustains its presence in your life? And this is a two-part question. So it's what sustains its presence in your life, and what is it feeding off of? So what I mean when I say that is, how does it continue to impact you? What causes this thing to constantly impact you? Could it be connected to your low self-esteem? Could it be connected to your it kind of falls under the low self-esteem umbrella. Could it be connected to if you have issues with weight, if you feel like if you feel like you are not pretty enough, smart enough, and this person is in your life and they're creating spaces where they're insulting you and they're really digging at that. That is what it's feeding off of. So your insecurity, this person is kind of like latched onto this person or their particular action. They're latching onto it and they're constantly hitting you in this place that was already hurt. Leads me to question number 5. Hold that thought, right? So now you're really almost home at the home stretch of removing it, because now you know what it's latched onto in your life. Number 5. What is one thing you will do to remove its presence from your life? Now, this is bigger, and I encourage us all to think bigger than just saying, I'm going to get rid of this person. If it's a toxic person, yes, ideally, move them out your life. Don't talk to them anymore. However, there's small things that you can do to help prepare you for moving them out of your space. And one of those things could be saying, you know what, I looked down on myself and I didn't feel that pretty. We'll use looks. I didn't feel that pretty. I am going to start reflecting on the things that I really like about my physical appearance. So that way, when this person is coming in with their insults, I now have something to counter it, to say, hey, this is an untrue statement. And I know it's untrue because this is how I now look at myself. Start there. When you continue to move up the ladder in this way, that person and their actions become more and more of a problem for you, and it becomes less and less of a vibe that you want in your space. And that's how you find the strength to move them out. So these 5 questions will really help you to start understanding what the toxicity is in your life and how to move it out. It's some heavy work, right? So the questions are just there to guide you. The real work comes in when you answer the questions and you sit comfortable with the answers, because the answers can make you reflect on what I was starting with earlier about how toxicity often is connected to our internal perceptions of self, right? And then you start to realize, wow, this person or this thing came into my space because it was here to teach me a lesson. It was here to show me that I needed to see myself in a greater light. It was here to show me that I'm not all the things that I was told in my childhood that I held on to, or I'm not the things that I feared I may be. Toxicity tends to come into your space as like a huge blaring red alert to pay attention to the thing that it's targeting. And this right here is like the meat and potatoes of what I love talking to my clients about when we're working together. So if they have a goal in mind, we go deep and we're like, okay, well, and I don't often use the word toxic because sometimes it can be scary to people for people to hear. However, we're going at that thing that is in your way, that thing that is holding you back, that energy that just doesn't support your growth. We're going at it. We're going at it by identifying its existence and then saying, okay, this doesn't fit anymore, right? If I'm trying to get to point B right now, I need to say in A, this needs to get removed, and here's the work that I'm going to do to remove it. So, NSG community, I hope that these 5 questions that I provided were helpful to you. I would love to connect with you guys more on the topic, so feel free to DM me if you have any questions after reviewing this video, because I'm going to save it and post it. So if you have any questions, or if you think it would be helpful for someone else to kind of dive deeper into this subject, please let me know. I'm also always taking suggestions of different topics that I can talk about on the NSG Live. Remember, this is all about coaching and removing blockages. That is my specialty. That is what I love to help support people in doing. So please send your messages in the DMs. I read them, I take note of them, and I kind of categorize them so that way I can filter them out to you all in any way. Oh, you're welcome. So tell a friend and tell a friend. I'll be back here next Sunday, and I'll also still be posting my thoughts and so forth for everyone to see during the week. All right. And if you want these questions sent to you, just send me a DM and I will forward you the questions. Okay. All right. Until then, NSG community, never stop growing. Bye.